Welcome back to Biohacking Beauty, the podcast where we simplify the science of youthful skin and dive deep into cutting edge biohacking strategies to help you glow from the inside out. I'm your host, Amitai Eshel, and today we've got a real game changer in regenerative medicine joining us, Dr. Ross Carter. With over 26 years of experience in non surgical joint regeneration and 13 years pioneering stem cell and exosome therapies, Dr. Carter has transformed how we think about healing and aging. He's a 3-time best-selling author and the creator of Young for Life program, which blends personalized protocols for biological age reduction, peak performance, and most relevant here, skin rejuvenation. Today, we're cutting straight to the what we are interested in and what we're getting a lot of questions about: how advanced biologics like stem cells and exosomes can actually repair and reprogram your cells and your skin at a cellular level, slow aging, and restore the youthful glow naturally. If you're ready to dive into the science and practical biohacks behind cellular health and longevity, you're in the right place. And just a quick heads up, this podcast is brought to you by Young Goose Skincare, the company I co founded with my wife, Anastasia. If you want to try some of these biohacking skincare solutions for yourself, you can use code podcast10 at younggoose.com to get 10% off. Now let's get into it. Okay, my dear friend and really someone I admire is on the podcast today, Dr. Ross Carter. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so obviously we've known each other for a few years now, and I think first time I saw you was at a Dave Asprey conference. You walked around with the kind of similar shirt that you're wearing today, which is kind of Dr. Stem Cell. I think it was a t-shirt probably back then.
Yeah.
But I think back then, I mean, not even a short while back, I think it's 2021 or 2022. We lived in a different world. It was, I mean, at least it wasn't as popular as it is today. Even the words, I think, stem cells.
Yes. They are becoming very popular, actually.
Yeah. So maybe we should start by defining, what stem cells are and how are they used within the context of regenerative medicine as a whole.
Well, there's different types of stem cells that we can talk about. The two primary, and when it comes to therapy, at least, that's primarily what we're talking about. You've got,
but let's say someone doesn't even know. A lot of the times, obviously, when you talk even with people in the field, you start pretty later on in the conversation. But really, if someone doesn't know, what are stem cells?
Well, we'll start with that. A basic stem cell is a undifferentiated cell that can become another type of tissue. It can become more of itself, or it can delineate, meaning convert down to a specific type of cell. So like if it wants to be a heart cell or a skin cell or a brain cell or whatever, those originate from an undifferentiated stem cell. And the master stem cell we call an MSC, mesenchymal stem cell, or medicinal signaling cell. They have a couple names. And so they're really responsible for creating the new tissue in our body once it becomes damaged. Mm-hmm. So that's the essence of what a stem cell is.
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, it's kind of what we're made of to begin with. It's like we can think of like almost like a process of like pruning as it kind of migrates throughout the cycle. It starts as everything, and slowly access to certain information of what it means to be different types of cells is closed off or hidden.
Yes.
And then it only has a choice to be a specific cell.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. It has the ability to really become anything, and then it basically chooses a line of cells that it needs to become based on different factors.
So, so now, now that we kind of know that, I think now it begets the question. Maybe if you could break down how stem cell therapy and maybe other type of like regenerative therapy that stem from stem cells work at cellular level to repair
Mhm.
our body.
So there are two different lines of cells that we can talk about when it comes
Hmm.
to stem cells. When we're using it as a therapy,
Hmm.
regardless of how it's being used, whether it be used for your skin, whether it be used for your joint, whether it be used for brain issues,
Hmm.
there's two different types of cells that we talk about. We either can use your own stem cells. So
Hmm.
you have stem cells in your body right now.
Hmm.
They're in your bone marrow. They're in your adipose tissue. So they're stored there, and they surround your blood vessels,
Hmm.
and they're there when you injure yourself or some repairs need to be happen. Then they come out and they try to repair the damage.
Hmm.
Now, when we use our own stem cells, the challenge we have is as we age, the ability and the quantity of those cells is lower.
Hmm.
It just can't repair like we used to. We can't heal like we did when we were 2 years old, right? You would go out and play on your bike. Well, maybe not at two, but go out and play on the playground or something, and you'd skin your knee, and then the next day or the day afterwards, I mean, it was like it never happened.
Hmm.
Today, if you go out and, skin your knee, it takes a while for that to heal, if it completely heals at all.
Yeah.
So using our own stem cells can benefit us. However, we've found that it's really dependent on a lot of factors, one being our health, one being our age, how
Hmm.
well we're doing in general, is how's our nutrition, things like that. So another choice that a lot more people choose is what's called an external source of cells,
Hmm.
using what's called perinatal tissue, which is the tissue that remains after a woman's had a baby.
Hmm.
All that tissue, there's an umbilical cord, there's placenta, there's cord blood, there's amniotic fluid. We group that into a category called perinatal tissue.
Hmm.
And what's amazing is scientists or laboratories have the ability to take someone else's placental tissue and recycle those cells so that other people, not even related to that family, can use them for a therapy.
Hmm.
Now, these are super, super strong because they are only a day old. So they haven't been around for a long period of time. So they tend to have a very strong ability to repair damage, even if it's not from someone in our family, which is
Hmm.
a question I get all the time. Now, the body does, when we use external cells, the body will recognize them as foreign, but it has these cells have the ability to evade the immune system for a period, and usually enough time to get its therapeutic response. So we can actually stimulate a healing response and then be killed, and it still helps the body. So more people are kind of turning to the use of perinatal tissue as opposed to just using their own cells.
So you're saying, in other words, that it is not necessarily the cells themselves that cause the majority of the repair. It is the information that they relay as far as like tissue, as far as like stimulation for repair.
Yeah. So a stem cell itself is more like a surveyor.
Hmm.
What it does is it surveys what is happening in an area of inflammation. So
Hmm.
they're attracted to inflammation, so they go to that area, and then they kind of have this intelligence to figure out what needs to happen to fix the problem.
Hmm.
So I think of it like a job site where you got the guy in the middle explaining to all the workers what they need to do,
Hmm.
and then those workers are the ones that actually do all the work. And the
Hmm.
way it does that is through signaling. So you've got these little tiny particles that come from stem cells, and they actually come from all cells. It's a way of communication. They're called exosomes, or that's the
Yeah.
most common word that most people have heard of, exosomes. And really, what an exosome is a protected encapsule of information. It has
Hmm.
information in it of how to do something, whether it say take down inflammation or to stimulate a repair. So those little capsules, those little exosomes are really what causes and stimulates the actual repair repair work to whoa repair work to happen.
Okay, we can cut that out, by the way. So
So the exosomes are really what causes those repairs to occur.
so within what you said before, which is the quality of perinatal tissue,
Hmm.
is there a difference in quality of exosome as far as the age of the cells?
Yeah. So all of your cells make exosomes. They all use that system of communication. So your cells are always constantly communicating with each other.
Hmm.
So yeah, the younger the signal, obviously, the more powerful it typically is going to become.
Hmm. Yeah.
You can get signals from all kind of cells, but typically we're talking about repair and regeneration, we want to use the cells that are responsible for that. In this case,
Hmm.
stem cells typically. So those are the exosomes that we're typically looking at using, these stem cell exosomes, for example.
Hmm. Okay, so I think a lot of people might have heard of two types of therapies, especially as again as time goes on and more and more people are offering those therapies, and really you could find them in people who are maybe less experienced or more experienced. That's kind of why I asked you to come on, because I regard you as an authority and an experienced person in the field. Um, there are two things that I think most people are exposed to now. One is localized and or even like hyper localized, right? And one is systemic
Yes.
um, treatment.
Yes.
Um, w- Maybe we could talk about the differences there and why would one choose one or not or the other.
Well, if you're talking about systemic, then we could be talking about autoimmune conditions or even aging for that matter.
Hmm.
If you're talking about localized, we're talking about working on a specific area or joint, for example.
Yeah.
Let's say they have knee pain or shoulder pain or something like that.
Hmm.
We can also use them in the skin. You know,
Hmm.
you can use it to help stimulate repair and regeneration of skin tissue and collagen.
Hmm.
And that's why it's used for facials as well.
Yeah.
So, so yes, it can be used systemically. It can be used locally. It really depends on what the goal of the treatment is. A lot of
Yeah.
people come to me and they have problems with their joints, their knees and shoulders, and we work specifically in those areas. We concentrate the healing products in those areas. If they have systemic issues, usually it's inflammatory. Pretty much
Hmm.
all systemic issues, autoimmune, for example, are an inflammatory systemic procedure or process, and we can use them to take down inflammation systemically, thereby helping to minimize the effects of the autoimmune condition.
Hmm. And is there a protocol where you're going to go? So again, like when we spoke last time, we spoke a lot about multiple sites of injection. So
Mhm.
multiple joints, and that this is becoming a more popular option because obviously, I got, for example, I got my knee injected with stem cells when I had a meniscus tear or anything like that. But
Yeah.
most people, even if they have something acute, they also have some lingering pain. So I'm sure they remember suddenly their hip hurts, etc. My
Yes.
question is, would they also benefit at the same time, or let's say they are concerned mainly about a specific joint, is there still a benefit to combining it with systemic introduction of stem cells, or would you rather um, work only on that tissue, on that specific tissue?
No, I think it's always great to do both.
Hmm.
You want there's more to a joint condition, especially than usually just wear and tear. I mean, what is causing the problem in the first place? What's going on? Why is the tissue not working? I mean, how has it been damaged? So you can do system wide in conjunction with direct injections, and
Uh-huh.
those improve the results always. So I'm a big fan of doing both at the same time.
Hmm.
You get much better results than if you just do one alone.
Interesting. Very cool. Okay, so what I'm very interested in is the kind of state of the union, if you will, as far as like biologics in general.
Sure.
Um, so you mentioned exosomes, you mentioned stem cells.
Mhm.
Within the skin health,
Yeah.
you know, category, there are also, growth factors and inflammatory cytokines. What are we seeing? What are you seeing?
Well, if you're talking about skin, I
Hmm.
mean, it has to do with the and joints. It's really the
Hmm.
extracellular matrix.
Yeah,
It's important for both skin and joint health. It's really a scaffolding
yeah.
which supports. In the skin, it gives firmness and elasticity.
Hmm.
In the joints, it supports the cartilage, helps with mobility. When it
Hmm.
breaks down, when we have aging, we have inflammation. Both, in the skin, we'll see wrinkles, and in the joints, we'll see joint pain. So,
Yeah.
and a lot has to do with this extracellular matrix.
Hmm.
And when the collagen, breaks down in the joint, we're going to have, I'm sorry, in the skin, it's
Yeah.
like the destruction of um, the tissue in the joint. They
Yeah.
break down, and then it causes issues.
Hmm. And what is the if someone is mainly interested in in health optimization,
Yes.
or like yeah, so health optimization or optimal performance or healthy aging, whatever you
Mhm.
would want to kind of categorize it.
Right.
How does one approach, or how does one interact with stem cells or biologics in general to improve what is already functioning well? I would say, like, how much of that do you see, and what are the approaches for that?
Yeah. So one of the ways that we look at it is biological aging, right?
Yeah.
We have our chronological age, which is how old our ID says we are,
Hmm.
and then we have what's called our biological age, which is how old our body is functioning, right?
Hmm.
And that can be you can do it by organ systems. There are different companies that
Hmm.
will break down the age of various organs, whether it be lungs and kidneys and brain, or you can have an overall biological age. And there are different ways to look at that. You can do blood tests that'll determine it. You can do saliva tests. But what the idea is to see how old your body is functioning in
Hmm.
essence. And once you know what's happening and how old your body is functioning, then you look at protocols that can help slow the process down.
Hmm.
Obviously right now we don't have the ability necessarily to, stop the aging process altogether. Not
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Uh, but, I believe in our lifetime that we might come pretty close. I think we might get there. There's a lot of
Hmm.
money right now in longevity.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars of very wealthy people are trying to, want to live eternally,
Yeah.
live forever.
My joke is that the more money you have, the less you want to die.
Yeah, exactly right. And the more money you put into something, the more likely you're going to find a solution, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, just look at Jeff Bezos, for example. He's invested a ton of money in this as well.
Yeah.
Everybody's really jumping on that bandwagon of let's live forever, right?
Hmm.
Or live as long as possible, as healthy as possible,
Yeah.
increasing our health span, not just our lifespan, right?
Yes. Correct.
So, that's really what our goal is. And you can use these biologics, whether it be a peptide, whether it be growth factors, exosomes, stem cells. You can use all these signals to slow the process of aging down. In
Hmm.
some cases, reverse it to some degree.
Hmm.
Like you could decrease dramatically your speed of aging, which is
Hmm.
what we want to do, is slow that process down so that we can live to 100 and feel great, and
Yeah.
not just, people when they I say, hey, how many of you, when I do seminars, how many
Hmm.
of you want to live past 80? And they're like, if half the hands maybe go up a little reluctantly. And I say, well, if you could live, let's say you could live past 80 and still feel like you do now, and then everybody wants to,
Yeah.
right? So we don't want to be a burden to society or live in a nursing home. There's not a lot of joy in life in that. It's enjoying the rest of your life and being as pain free and as active as you usually can, so that you
Hmm.
have cognition, so you can think, you can reason, you can remember things, and you can take care of yourself, and you can exercise, and you can move
Yeah.
and play and have fun. I played pickleball. I'm a big fan of pickleball, and I played with this guy who's 85 years old, and he was really, really excellent. I couldn't run
Hmm.
after the ball, but he could sure hit the ball really well.
Yeah.
So, I for me, I want to I want to be able to enjoy the rest of my life and be healthy enough to have fun. My goal is not to live as long as possible. It's to live as long as I can healthy.
Yeah. 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 I
That's the
agree.
goal. I have, some uncles and some great, or some, yes, definitely some uncles that are in their 80s, and, they aren't doing so well.
Hmm.
They're not, they're alive, but are they, they're barely alive. It's not,
Yes.
I want to be that when I get that old. I want to be able to, have fun, enjoy
Yes.
myself.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can use these biologics, to really enhance that, our ability to heal ourselves and repair the damage, even trick our body into believing it's younger, through methylation,
Yeah.
and then it makes our epigenetics, changes them to be more youthful, and that's really what we want to express is youth.
1,000,000%. So how would one, and we can definitely talk about organ specific like the skin or joints, but how does one go about, achieving that, 80-year-old dream of being an 80-year-old and feeling and looking as young as they are today?
Well, I've been in the alternative healthcare field for a long, long time,
Yeah.
regenerative medicine for a long time as well. There's science is coming up with ways a lot. I mean, you'd be surprised at all the discoveries that are being made all the time. They're learning so many things about how to do something and preserve our life so that we can be healthy.
Hmm.
I mean, the first thing is some simple things that people can do. One is sleep.
Hmm.
If you don't recover, it doesn't matter how many stem cells or peptides you use, and
Hmm.
if you're not sleeping, they're not going to work.
Yeah.
So I would say the first thing is you got to get your great quality sleep every single night, and that is the first step, and
Hmm.
that's something that most people that I talk to have not mastered. They
Yeah.
they get they get sometimes good sleep, and sometimes most of the time it's just not that great. So, that's the first step. And if you're not sleeping, figure out what it is that's causing you not to, and learn how to maximize your sleep.
Yeah.
So that's the primary thing. Recovery. You have to give your body a chance to recover. Then you can use all these other options to accelerate our repair process. These signaling factors, they really just accelerate our own body's ability to heal.
Yeah.
I can't give stem cells to a dead person and expect them to heal, right?
Yeah.
They won't. It's working in combination with your own body and accelerating the process of repair. We have
Yeah.
the ability to heal ourselves. It just slows down as we get older.
Yeah.
And these biologics or whatever you're using is speeding up that process. And that's really what we want to do is repair as quickly as possible, recover as quickly as possible so we can enjoy ourselves.
Cool. Yes, for sure. So walk us through a typical regenerative medicine protocol you use for skin or joint rejuvenation. What does a patient experience from start to finish?
Well, okay, let's take an example so that it's easy to
Yeah.
explain. Let's take somebody that comes in, they have a problem with, a shoulder.
Yeah.
They play tennis or something and their
Hmm.
shoulder is bothering them. How do we deal with it? Well, first thing is we want to find out, do they have a degenerative process that's occurring in that joint? Is
Hmm.
the tissue wearing down, and why? Now, a lot of people don't know this, which surprises me. When we see degeneration, we say wear and tear. But
Hmm.
what does that mean? I mean, are you saying that the tissues are rubbing and then they're getting thinner? That's not how it really works. What's happening there is there are these enzymes. They're called proteases, and they work on the skin just as well as on the joints. And what they do is they like, think of it like a little Pac-Man going in there, and they eat up some of the tissue. Now they're naturally supposed to be there to clean up when you have damage, but typically as you get older and you have more damage, they kind of uh, stay around in the areas, and they'll start to really eat up the healthy
Yeah.
cartilage and tissue. So if that's the case, which a lot of people have, they've got some. We use a new type of therapy that neutralizes these enzymes,
Hmm.
and once you neutralize the enzymes, then that repair, then you can repair it. But you've got to stop this process. It's like having a house and having termites eating it up. Now you could go and put more wood on top of it, but if you don't fix the infestation of these termites, it's really not going to last that long.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, "Hey, I did stem cells and it didn't quite work for me," I say, "Well, did you stop the degeneration that's occurring?" They're like, "No." Say, "Well, that would be step one." So when
Hmm.
we address somebody, we look at the what's causing the degeneration. Is it a degenerative process with enzymes? A lot of times it is. So we neutralize that first. That's our first step. The second step is then now we have a joint that's ready for regeneration as much as possible. We use peptides, we use stem cells, we use exosomes, all those in a nice symphony of repair. It stimulates as much and as fast as we can the tissue to start to rebuild, and it can rebuild
Hmm.
for most people. And after that, we want to strengthen it. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's great to get, new tissue regeneration in the area, but if you go and you just, rip it back up, it's not going to do much good. So you want to strengthen it. And we recommend people do a specific types of protocols to start to strengthen the new tissue so that it can support itself and then stay on a more permanent basis.
Yeah.
So typically for a joint, that's our kind of our three-step process that we take people through.
Yeah, in a lot of the times when I give a lecture or whatever, I equate it to the difference between going to the dentist and brushing your teeth every day, right? Like you have to do both things. If you went to the dentist, you got work done, but then you don't do anything at home, which would be that supportive process, right? That would
Exactly.
be the work, the strengthening of the area,
Yep.
or good lifestyle, or following instructions, because one of the things you told me that frustrated you is people going, they get it, they get their shoulder injected and worked on, and then they go
Yeah.
and back to, whatever injured them to begin with, very, very fast.
We have that happen, and it is a very common theme that happens even after I tell them, you
Yeah.
need to take some time off. You need to let this repair, and they feel better. So that's the problem with just feeling better. You start to
Yeah.
feel when we do a procedure, typically people feel pretty good within a few days,
Yeah.
sometimes a week. They're like, "Oh, I feel the pain's gone. It must be all better." And I'm like, "No, it's just starting. We're
Yeah.
just starting this process." And and then they go and hurt themselves, and I'm like, you got to you got to give it some time. You just can't.
Yeah.
You break your leg and you put a cast on it, and you think, oh, a week, it doesn't, I don't feel it so much anymore. And then you can't just take off the cast and start working, doing your thing. It's just
Yeah.
not going to work. It's not going to
Yeah.
work. So people, they've got to understand you do need to take the time off.
And I think probably, the same thing applies to facials that involve stem cells, exosomes, whatever biologics we're talking about. It's also the, not exposing it to, environmental stress, to the sun and things like that,
Yeah,
that would make
exactly.
it effective. Yeah.
Yeah, don't do a procedure and then sit out in the sun for all day long the
Yeah.
next day, right?
Yeah. Um, do you have any pre or post treatment biohacking strategies you recommend, whether it is, nutrition and supplementation, or things maybe like red light therapy or anything like that?
Well, when we do a procedure, the things we want to do is allow the process to occur.
Hmm.
Now, what stops the process? Let's say somebody has a joint, or we're doing IVs or any of those. We want to not trick the body by using anti-inflammatories.
Yeah.
Anything that takes away inflammation. See, inflammation is your body's way to signal and say, "Hey, there's a problem
Yeah.
here."
Yeah.
And when we take those, it tricks the body and say, "Well, I guess there's no problem here, so I don't need to do anything."
Yeah.
So we tell people to avoid any of those inflammatory things, whether it be a cortisone shot
Yeah.
or NSAIDs or any kind of supplementation that takes away inflammation. We want to avoid that for at least for a while until the body starts repairing.
Sorry to cut you. Is it even things like curcumin or
Yeah,
obviously like turmeric?
supplements
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah, curcumin is definitely one we want to minimize or
Hmm.
just stop taking for a while.
Yeah.
Just let your body feel its full inflammation so that it knows how to fix it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're tricking it the whole time, and
Like
you don't know.
therapy.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Okay. What about obviously I think a very growing field, at least like in our little sphere, is stem cell mobilizing supplements. Is that
Uh-huh.
something, what is your, unbiased, obviously, but what is your real opinion around that, or are
Well,
you using them? What's going on there as far as
I
you're
think it's a
concerned?
fine adjunctive support. It is not like doing a stem cell procedure.
Hmm.
People that make supplements that are supposed to stimulate your own stem cells, they make it as the solution for everything, and that's very unlikely. Um, some of them use the concept of they mobilize your
Bone
stem
marrow?
cells from
Yeah.
your bone marrow, right?
Yeah.
And I'm it's not, there's a cascade of events that occur. It's not just one thing like
Hmm.
that. And I don't know if constantly stimulating the release of your bone marrow hematopoietic stem cells is always a great idea. It
Yeah.
might cause other issues. I'm not aware. So, I mean, in theory, it sounds interesting. I just don't know enough if the research supports it being a good thing for
Hmm.
everyone. I have my reservations about it.
Yeah. As they like to say, more research needs to be done.
Well, yeah, I would say yes, because there a lot of times people jump on the bandwagon of a
Yeah.
keyword,
Yeah.
catchphrase, and they say stem cells. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
well, when I first started this, God, more than 10 years ago, I made my own supplement. I called it
Hmm.
Stem. STIMSTEM, like
Hmm.
stimulate stem cell production.
Yeah.
And I used all those supplements that everybody's doing now. I
Hmm.
made my own stem cell supplement. So I was a big fan. But what I found is it helps to support a procedure, but it's
Hmm.
not a replacement.
Got it. That's very interesting. And actually, it begs the question, how do you measure the effectiveness of regenerative protocols as a whole?
Yeah.
Obviously, skin, it's a little bit easy because we could at least have a
Yeah.
before and after.
Yeah.
But are there specific biomarkers or clinical signs you can track?
Yeah. Of course, you can look at inflammatory markers in the blood.
Yeah.
C-reactive protein, for example. You
Hmm.
can you can do a blood study and look at inflammatory markers and see if they've been decreased or if they're elevated or whatever's going on. So yeah,
Hmm.
we do blood work a lot to see what's going on. I like the biological age tests as well.
Yeah.
That can give us a good sense of what the methylation patterns are of your cells and whether or not they are slowing down the process.
Hmm.
So you can do all those things. You can also take things that extend telomeres, for example, or
Hmm.
simulate stem cells, like you said. There's different avenues to track.
Yeah. Yeah. And would these biologics actually reprogram cells, or let's say, or the cell environment to maintain usefulness long term?
Yes, I believe we can do that using, let's say, stem cell exosomes, for example.
Hmm.
Um, there's this process called heterochronic parabiosis. And for your listeners that may not know what that means, it's where they take two animals. Let's say with the current research they use is rats. They take an old rat, they take a young rat, and they connect their circulatory systems together.
Hmm.
And the old rat starts to rejuvenate in all cell lines. The young rat starts to kind of accelerate aging. So they're kind of having this change of their cellular function,
Mhm.
which is pretty dramatic and amazing. So we see that you can change cells into a more youthful state in every area. And we can use that concept when we do it for ourselves. So what we do is use the signaling factors. Now, what causes that is all these youthful signaling factors in the young rat that's
Mhm.
going into the old rat. So now the old rat cells sees all these youthful signals and it thinks, well, I guess we're younger than we thought. And then they start functioning that way, to say it in an easy way.
Mhm.
And so we can use that same process ourselves. I mean, you've probably heard about people using young blood transfusions,
Yeah.
where they would buy young plasma or young blood from another person, and they would do an infusion, and it would rejuvenate them, and it works. Even like guys like Brian Johnson
Yeah.
used his son to do it. And so it's pretty interesting how those works. But you're really just using the youthful signals and you're putting them in your body, and it's influencing your cell's behavior.
Mhm.
It has to do with different um, things like methylation, which is the expression of your health, your genetics, and you have patterns that form as you get older. They're basically different patterns that happen with methylation, and when you use youthful signals, it changes that methylation to be more young.
Mhm.
So that's the way I see it, as a way to, use these like biologics to slow the process of aging and trick yourselves into believing they're young, and then they start to act that way. Pretty cool.
Yes, it is. And is that the viewpoint behind your kind of life, yeah, Young for Life program? Is that
Exactly.
yeah,
But that's the whole purpose.
yeah.
I've worked with a lot of celebrities. Most of them I cannot name.
Mhm.
However, I can name one, Tony Robbins, who put me in his book. So he
Yeah.
he put that in there, so I can say it.
Yeah.
And so, but the idea is everybody wants to be young for life, right?
Yeah.
They want to feel healthy and strong, and we're using these to basically influence our body to function at the younger level.
Mhm.
We want to be as young as for as long as we possibly can. So that's what I came up with a program basically where we look at your body's blood work, we look at your genetics, we look at your biological aging, we put all that together and look at your hormones as well. And we put together kind of a package of things of how do we slow this person's aging. So we look at your genetics and see, where do you have problems? Do you what we all have areas of genetic weakness, right? So, what are yours? And if we find what's going on, then we can support it. Then we look at your aging. How old is your cells functioning? And we see if they're functioning older, then we can look at things to slow that process down, right?
Mhm.
Look at your hormone levels. Most people just don't pay attention to that, but that's a huge thing that really has to do with your energy levels and how you function. So we do all those things, those tests, and then we have a baseline of where you are, and let's see where you want to go, and then we come up with a program of how to get you there. We use anything and everything that will slow it down as much as possible. Most of the time, it's these biologics, so peptides and exosomes, stem cells, all
Yeah.
these things will help with that process.
Are there many people who come and say, "Hey, at the end of the day, I want to look younger from this program"?
Of course. What's great is when we do it, especially systemically, it affects every system of the body, whether it be
Yeah.
your skin, whether it be your blood vessels, your muscles, your
Mhm.
bones, everything, cognition. It works on everything. That's why I'm a huge fan of systemic procedure.
Yeah.
It'll also, if you use the little tiny exosome particles, they'll go up into your brain. It can help stimulate neurogenesis and creation of new brain cells,
Mhm.
and it can take down inflammation that could lead to dementia or other issues.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Um, what new protocols or biologics are you most excited about, um, that are coming up? Are there any innovations in the field that you like?
Well, I mean, when it comes to stem cells, I mean, stem cells are stem cells. We're not usually we found that when we mess with it, it causes issues, and we don't want that. We don't want
Yeah,
cancerous issues and things like that. I'm right now. Something I'm really excited about is these enzyme neutralizing
yeah,
therapies, because when I first started, I didn't know anything about that. All we did was stimulate tissue regeneration, but I didn't know anything about these enzymes that are causing the destruction in the first place and
yeah.
neutralizing those. So that's an area that's pretty new, that most people have never heard of, and it's so important to get great results. Is stop the destruction first. Once you do that, then you can stimulate the tissue regeneration.
You know,
But
it's funny. I gotta interject and tell you that I feel you, and it's you know, I wish it was coming across as sexier. The truth, because
we
for
need
us,
a supermodel chick.
yeah, I'll tell you why. Because for us, we are also obsessed with some enzymes that are more close to what we care about, which is NAD, or we can give NAD as an example, but we are obsessed with a few enzymes and pathways, enzymatic pathways. CD38 is like a big one because it eliminate its whole being in our body, affects NAD negatively, but there are other ones as well. Um, and we come up with those new innovations within the field, and it's just not as sexy as saying, peptide or collagen or even the NAD. Start talking about enzymes, I think people kind of taper off a little bit from the conversation. But yeah, but they
Well, I
are.
don't talk too much about them. I just say,
Mhm.
hey, the bad ones that are going on, we want to neutralize them.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, say MMPs, for
yeah,
example,
yeah,
or
yeah,
I'll start naming them.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you're saying it, because Um, I think there is obviously a what we talked about, which is a negative effect of kind of going back to what has brought you to the office to begin with,
Hmm.
too soon. But there is also, and you mentioned MMPs, there is also a mental and cortisol aspect that is often not addressed. MMPs and cortisol are intrinsically linked. So are you ever talking about, the mental aspect, and anything from like mindfulness to just like chilling the F down as a adjunct?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm a big fan of is having routines,
Yeah.
morning routines, evening routines, and absolutely. So, one of the things I do myself, I mean, every night I have alarms on my phone at specific times to do certain things.
Hmm.
In the mornings, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins,
Hmm.
obviously. And so I'll do his priming, the
Hmm.
priming. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but you can look them up. And it's basically, having gratitude, thinking
Hmm.
of what you want out of your life, calming your body down, projecting positive light out into the world.
Yeah.
So if you do that on a daily basis, that's a really good way to start your morning. And then in the evening, I cut out all the blue lights with my blockers. I basically prepare my body to go to sleep so that when I lay down, I fall asleep really quickly and get great quality sleep. So I'm a big fan of routines, and routines have to do with mindfulness. I even have a program on brain tap. You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a sleep program of I think it's a 14-day program on brain tap for years, and it's super popular. I still get residuals from that, which is exciting. But it's all about learning to focus and improve your own mental health so
Do
that
you,
you can sleep great.
do you ever listen to yourself? You're like, look, I gotta listen to myself, calming myself
A
down here.
little weird because I have a very I had to record that with a very monotone voice, and
Yeah.
I'm talking like this. So it's not like a normal conversation, because if you're somebody's being hypnotic, because it has the hypnotic thing,
Yes.
you don't want to sit here and talk like, so here, okay, I want you to relax, to really relax. It doesn't work. So, it's very
Relax
calming.
harder.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not relaxing enough. Do it now.
Yeah.
You seem stressed. So I do it. But yeah, I put together that because I actually put together a program on learning how to restore your sleep. I wrote a book about it too.
Yeah.
It's basically biohacking your sleep so
Mhm.
that you can restore it. Because I was a chronic insomniac for
Wow.
years, and I had major issues. I was addicted to sleeping pills,
Wow.
Lunesta, for example, years on it. And I had to figure out how to restore my sleep because it was just not good.
Mhm.
And it was so hard to find a way. And so I had to figure it out. And so then I started teaching other people how to get their sleep, restore it, because it was so important. Because I'd see people they just wouldn't sleep and then they just fall apart, man.
Yeah.
It's a torture. It
Yes.
was torture for me, man. I was under a lot of stress and I got through it, but it wasn't easy. So I wrote about it.
Listen, I love it. Obviously, we have a one toddler, 1 year and 4 month
Oh
old.
yes.
So let me tell you, that's something I miss definitely. Good sleep. Um, okay, so maybe to finish, I know you said that there is not a lot of, really, you don't want to play with stem cells too much, but I think there. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the stem cells themselves, true. However, exosomes, I think there's a lot of customization that we
Yeah.
can do. You can do, since I said exosomes can become from different parts of the cells, different types of cells, we can get custom exosomes from, say, cartilage or neurological or things like that that are specifically instructed on how to work with more of itself. So
Yeah.
customization of exosomes, I think, is kind of one of the things that I'm excited about as we go forward to say, hey, I need more cartilage. I don't need just a broad stem cell. I need cartilage rebuilt in this joint. And
Yeah.
then we get an exosome that is just for cartilage, and I like the customization aspects.
But as do we. I mean, that has been our journey for the last 2 years in our facility in Korea, building specific exosomes, which we derive from platelets that are specifically programmed for the skin matrix.
Yes,
And that has been, let me tell you, that has been one hell of a journey. But
I
I
bet.
think we're almost. I think we're almost there.
Well,
Um,
Florida just passed a law, or yeah, I don't know if you heard about it, right? You heard about it
yeah, yeah,
last week, where now Florida is a right to try kind of state,
yeah.
where if you are interested in actual stem cell therapy, you can do it here in Florida for
Yes.
legally.
Yeah.
Even if it's not FDA approved, it's still legal to do it here now in Florida. Now that's not
Yeah.
across the country, so you got to come here, which is of course where
Exactly.
I'm at, West Palm Beach.
Exactly. So, so I know, as you said, a stem cell exosome customization is definitely coming. I believe that Florida is definitely going to be like a good um, proof of concept of
Yeah,
what we can do as
yeah, we're
far
gonna have
as
medical
yeah.
tourism here for
Yes,
that.
that would be very exciting, and I'm
Yeah.
very excited, obviously, for you for that. Um, I- is there any way you see AI affecting the way the evolution of the field?
I mean, of course, AI can make decisions and mixtures. I mean, it's good for peptides. It has to do with,
Yeah.
it can do protein folding and all
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
cool stuff. I think AI is going to take over everything, every aspect of regenerative medicine,
Hmm.
longevity, all those things. AI is going to run. I mean, it can look at your blood work and then see stuff that we can't normally see.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, I love AI. I use it constantly. I'm not just daily, every day, constantly. Me and my AI are having conversations all the time, right? I can talk to my phone and it's my counselor, it's my friend,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
knows everything I need it to know.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. Listen, that has been a great conversation. I selfishly enjoyed it. Now let's get to, at the end of the day, this podcast, the evil plan of this podcast is the evil mission of this podcast is to get
Evil
people.
mission.
Now
I like
that's a
that.
that's a joke, but the mission, our mission basically is to have people obviously have a more health span and improve their life,
Yes.
and have our products work better because they function as younger people. And that's why we bring people such as yourself, because there is a corner of the market that you've really mastered. So the question is, how do people work with you? What is the best way to start the journey of kind of working with you, and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So my website, just go to my website, youngforlife.org,
Mhm.
not .com. So .org. I couldn't get the other one. And that's they can literally just go there and they can, connect with me, do a consult. And we do everything virtually.
Mhm.
Um, some procedures we can do in other locations, not necessarily locally, but
Mhm.
a lot of people do like to come to West Palm Beach. I mean, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's the first step. I'd say it's just go to my website. They can call our office at 561-962-1231, and they can do that as well.
very nice. Is there anywhere that they can hear you speak anytime soon? Because you do actually, you give very interesting lectures.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I try to find um, conferences and things that
Mhm.
I really connect with. I usually do A4M, for
Mhm.
example, and Asbury, and I've done a bunch of different biohacking conferences. I had a big biohacking conference a couple of years ago. So it really has to be something that I'm really interested in, that I like to
Mhm.
connect with,
Yeah,
and educate people about. So, I don't have anything specific I'm doing. I don't have anything scheduled right now.
got it. Okay, fantastic. But people should definitely look for your name. You have fantastic, insightful lectures.
Thank you.
Uh, okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ross Carter. I highly recommend people reach out, because I think as the field grows, the margin for error grows as well. And when I
Mhm.
say that, I mean margin of error physically, but also margin of error of choosing a provider and a guide, and someone that understands both the intangibles and adjuncts.
Mhm.
So again, knowing you for a long time, I really respect what you are doing, and
Thank you.
yeah, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you, guys. Bye.